Welcome to another edition of Throwing Shade. So I got up this morning and I asked myself, the NFL did what? The NFL's been known to do some pretty surly things. When you look at the league, look, any good line coach will tell you that it's all about leverage. Speed is important. Size is critical. Strength is imperative. But if we learned anything from the great late Minister of Defense, Reggie White, it's that leverage can mitigate all of those things. The league has leverage. And they know that the difference between a young man coming in and having a long and prosperous career and one that is only in the league for a year and is then washed out, the difference is micronic. And they know that. It's small. And the league inserts into that tiny window, into that small window of insecurity, that they exploit that. And then they align themselves, for whatever reason, with a union in a way that they can more effectively take advantage, unfortunately, of the players. And if the actions of Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson did anything, those things were seismic. They are representing what we hope to be a tectonic shift in power and influence in the NFL. A shift that I have to tell you it's long overdue. The league knows numbers. They know numbers. They've done the math. As a matter of fact, if you take, for example, the whole campaign to get a 17-game schedule, the league knows that the one additional game is not just one additional game. What it represents is about a 10% increase in revenue, even if viewership stays flat. In other words, if their viewership don't reach any more people, they're still going to see hundreds of millions of dollars of additional revenue just by adding that additional game. So they've done all the math. They know the numbers. They're experts. And you could say that their knowledge of numbers is how the league, to me, has committed one of the most egregious examples of malfeasance, at least to my knowledge. Here's the thing. 70% of the league is black. 100% of the league is going to get hurt. It is the league where everybody, on some occasion, is going to suffer some degree of damage. It's a 100% chance. Richard Sherman said this a few years ago. There's a 100% chance that if you're in the league, that you're going to get hurt. So one way to kind of mitigate that risk, is to deny the group that makes up 70% of your membership any equal treatment when it comes to resolving these injuries. The league has used for years, and this was just published last week, they have been using a lower cognitive baseline for black players. I know it's a lot of words, but they use a lower cognitive baseline. So there was a settlement that was made for $1 billion for CTE, for the damage that all of the players have been suffering from their ramming themselves into one another over a long period of time. So what the league did is they lowered the cognitive baseline for black players and instituted a test that requires a measurable decline in cognition in order to receive a part of this settlement. So if you've got 70% of the people in the league and you've reduced your risk or your liability, paying them out the money that we know they're owed, it's just one of those things that the league does. And those players that are suffering from brain injury and cognitive impairment, and for all that the league, we think sometimes the league is an example of meritocracy. We think that the league is the ultimate example of meritocracy. In other words, the people that are the best people get to play. It's not based on any quotas or anything of that nature. And so we want society in many ways to represent the league. But the league does things and they market themselves as if they're above this pedestrian prejudice that we see the things we see lived out in our towns and cities across the country. For example, this past week, there was a memorial celebration up in Hudson, Ohio. So they had a veteran that they commissioned who had served the nation, bright, intelligent white officer who came to the celebration. They asked him to give the keynote address. And so as he begins to speak to the crowd on Memorial Day, he begins to pontificate. He begins to wax eloquent about the contribution that black community has made to the celebration of Memorial Day. As a matter of fact, in his speech, he said it was in May of 1865. The celebration was initially called Decoration Day. And then he talks of how that first parade had tens of thousands of people in it, 3,000 of whom were black, and that the organizers had established it because of what had happened as a result of the Civil War. And as he is given recognition, they cut off his mic. The people who initiated the celebration, who commissioned him as a speaker, because he began to say things that were positive about the black community, his mic was cut off. And so they do a little research and discover that, yes, it was an intentional action on the part of the people that organized, because they didn't want people to know about the contributions that had been made by the black community. The proof, it turns out, proved to be too much for the organizers of that event, and so his mic was cut off. If we don't hear it, I guess it didn't happen. We thought the League, which is 70% black, was above that kind of blatant racism. It looks like Colin Kaepernick wasn't an aberration after all. But what do I know? I'm just throwing shade. Thanks for being with me again today. I look forward to seeing you next week.